Warning, what you are about to hear will disrupt the norm. We are the voice of the social misfit. We empower the outliers.
Nah, don't run from the discomfort. You need to stay in it. Feel the feels and feel some type of way. Let it hit your core, because that's where our healing and our change begins.
System malfunction. System override.
Another system that we didn't talk about yet, and I want to hold off until we have our guest speaker, is talking about the healthcare system and how us as Black people are impacted by that. And I think that 2020 and being introduced to the COVID vaccine and COVID-19 in general, so the COVID vaccine to combat that, is a little off-putting with the Black community. So just having somebody to address our angst, our trigger, like being riled up or being uncomfortable with wanting to willingly run towards this vaccine. We've invited a special guest, Dr. Yolanda Paylor, HBCU grad from Winston-Salem State University. So, you know, me and Sarah, sorry, Aggie. But we've invited Dr. Yolanda Paylor to come and to talk to us, kind of demystify some things, address our triggers through education, of course. So without further ado, we're going to bring her on.
Boom. We're live. We're hot.
We are hot. Like it.
So with that being said, within our trigger warning segment, we just kind of talked about our connections with generational Blackness and how that coincides with different systems. And that kind of spins us into the medical system, because I really think it's important that we talk about that, especially since we're still dealing with the pandemic. We're still dealing with COVID-19. It hasn't gone away, but there is this new introduction of a COVID vaccine. So I thought that it would be best if we introduce our special guest, our very first guest of our Feeling Trigger series.
Oh, I didn't know it was the first.
First guest. Inaugural guest.
Guest, yes. So no pressure, but all the pressure.
But
like
really.
That's the standard. But anyway, Dr. Yolanda Paylor, thank you so much for coming on to Feeling Triggered and talking about your experience with the vaccine. Can you give us a brief intro, though, of like who you are, what your medical background is?
Yes, I can do that. So yes, I am a Black physician. Hashtag we out here, you know. But yes, I am a family medicine physician. I'm actually doing a additional year of training to be able to deliver babies vaginally and via C-section. So I'm pretty much your general, can do it all kind of doctor. And like, you know, I'm on this podcast to educate. I think it's really important. I actually have a YouTube channel that I'm trying to do better about to help with educating people in the medical field, especially people that look like me, or they're doing family medicine with obstetrics. And sometimes you just can't find information about that. So I actually do have a YouTube channel because education is very important to me. So, but yes, I am here. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm excited. I actually went to undergrad with Lauren and Sarah. WSSU, Winston-Salem State University, you know best.
These audiences, man, I didn't know we were on a comedy podcast. That's funny. Everybody knows that the best HBCU in the country is and always will be North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, home of the mighty Aggies. Aggie pride to all my Aggies out there. Talking about some Winston-Salem. Get out of here.
You're
That's
like
real cute. But I'm sorry to interrupt. Please continue. We won't hold that against you. That's what I'll say. The audience won't hold that against you.
But all jokes aside, like, you know, my sister went to A&T. You know, we all out here making our network. You know, HBCUs are like building this amazing network, and we're producing great people. So it's all love. But, you know, at the end of the day, only one best, and it's right here.
Thank you. Right. Thank you. And that's the end of the conversation. Stop it right there. Keep going.
Matter of fact, I was going to share my screen, but Jarrell has prohibited me, and I can't help but think
I got you. Hold on. I'm going to give you rights. I'm going to give you rights.
I just want to put that out there to the universe. He's trying to stop our screen share. Oh, okay, I can share now. You see how you had to trigger him a little bit. Okay, so sharing my screen briefly. This is me and Yolanda.
Oh,
I know, babies.
golly.
SGA, you know. What was
Yeah,
your goal?
I had that bob cut. You know what I'm saying? I was too cute.
Girl, that's okay, because my hair was pressed in, so it didn't last very long. And then
Girl.
last one, I remember this fondly. On the float.
Oh
Oh my
gosh.
God.
Man.
Yo.
Oh man.
Ah,
That's triggering right there.
Oh
Ah.
I
my
got them
God.
braids.
Mixtape is coming out.
Oh,
Mixtape coming out.
You feel me?
girl. And you know, we had to walk across the field and then Jessica Simpson high heels. And it was just like, these are not functioning shoes, man. My feet were like not having it, but y'all are better than me.
I
They
think
are
this,
so
I mean,
All right, stop triggering our audience, please.
Yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot.
me and Yolanda go way back. We were trailblazers then, but you're being a trailblazer now because I saw on Instagram you got the COVID vaccine.
I did. I just got the second dose on yesterday at 7 a.m. yesterday. So I just finished 24 hours post. I'm feeling pretty good. You know, I'm not dying from side effects. So I think that's a win.
She's sitting here with us, guys. She's talking, she's coherent. So
Right.
she's not a zombie. So
Yeah.
we're killing some myths already.
You know, Bill Gates isn't, controlling my actions. None of that. We're good. We're good.
Okay.
So
Well, go ahead.
So did you have apprehension? I know, I guess, as a person in the medical field, you kind of didn't have a choice from my understanding. Like that was basically what it was. But did you have any apprehension initially when it came to fruition that they're going to start giving it out?
That's a very good question. And it is completely optional, even for us.
Oh, okay.
So it's not mandated. But yes, to short answer. And I think most of us, even my friends in medicine, especially those of minorities, Black, we were just like, I don't know. We need to make sure we get this tested. Like let some other people get it first. But the funny things, I remember being like, man, my white colleagues are just so excited about this vaccine. And I'm like, oh no, let me see first. But honestly, it's just so much good positivity in the environment that I am in. And it's, and we can talk about the vaccine because I know that's very important, so I can educate, but it's a very safe vaccine, even though it's not FDA approved. There's no FDA approved vaccine like the vaccines you get like when you're a kid. Those are all FDA approved. Because this pandemic is happening, it's just, it's just getting out of control. We just are trying to bring this back, put it back in a bag. The FDA issued an emergency administration or authorization use, which pretty much means that, yes, although it's not been approved by us, we have found that the people who have gotten the vaccine, the risk of bad outcomes or side effects are so minimal compared to the benefit that the vaccine can provide, that we feel safe in saying where we are in time that we can administer this vaccine. So that is just something that everyone knows. It's not an FDA approved vaccine. There are no FDA approved vaccines for COVID. However, this has passed enough clinical trials to people so that they can say, we feel safe, that we can give this, and the benefits of the vaccine outweigh the risks of not having the vaccine.
That's fair. So, and I guess it's a place of the same level of comfort or discomfort that you would have with any vaccine, because the medical approach is the same. It's a smaller dosage of, quote unquote, smaller dosage of the virus so that your body can build immunity. Is that the same across the board for all vaccines? And is that the approach that they're taking with the COVID vaccine as well?
That's a very good question. So, and you probably don't remember this because you got your first vaccines when you were a kid. You had no say. Your parents were like, give it to them. And you were like, all you remember is getting a lollipop or maybe some McDonald's after the appointment. But every vaccine that you get is in a series. There are no vaccines that we have that's like, there's one maybe. No, they're all in a series. So it's just like the first dose is usually priming the body. And then the second one is where you start building that immunity. And we give vaccines, like there's one particular vaccine you get from birth. Like before you leave the hospital, if your parents want it, we give it to you, which is hepatitis B. I think the issue is because there haven't been any new vaccines in so long that people are a little hesitant about this, but it's the same situation. You just don't remember the vaccine trials for polio or for whooping cough. And we get those every day. And, we're fine. For rubella, for measles, for even chickenpox, right? As kids, we had to get chickenpox. You'd have chickenpox parties and you'd be like, oh, such and such kid got chickenpox. Let's go over there so we can get this, get you infected so you can get your immunity. But now they actually have a vaccine. So there's some kids who've never had to experience chamomile lotion and oatmeal baths. You know what I mean? So it's just, it has been so long since we've made a new, definitely adult vaccine. So I think that's where the hesitation is. But the vaccine itself is how it works. It's an mRNA vaccine, which pretty much is like, it gives the vaccine, the first dose gives your body this protein. The immune cells or the infection fighting cells, there's a specific one. It takes that little protein that is administered in the body, and in that cell, it makes up all these little proteins that will produce pretty much a protein that's found on the virus. So pretty much it's like you're being exposed to the virus without being exposed to the virus. There's no live component in the vaccine. It's just, here's a little piece of the protein. Now your body's going to make the protein itself. The vaccine will use your own cells to make this particular protein that's on the surface of the virus. So then when you get your second dose, before that immune cell will then so it takes it in, it makes the protein, and then it shows it to another immune cell in the body. That immune cell is like, okay, we got to start making antibodies. I don't know what this is. This is a foreign thing, and it should not belong here. Just like when you get sick from the flu or you get sick from like a sore throat, all of that stuff. So when you get your second dose, your immune system has now been primed. It's ready to go. So when they introduce that virus, that little protein, your body has a huge response to make more and more antibodies, because it's like, I've seen this before. I recognize this. I know it's foreign. I already have my antibodies. Let's get them cranked out. And that is how you build antibodies to this virus without being exposed to the virus itself. I know that was probably like a lot, but
yeah. So I think that's awesome. I am all for the vaccine and getting it, but I know we were talking at a staff meeting and Jarrell and Lauren mentioned that they were not for it. Can you guys speak on why you guys are not interested in getting the vaccine?
Lauren, you want to go first? I've been talking.
Okay, sure. So I am not for getting the vaccine, but I'm also not for getting the flu vaccine. I just definitely think that there is some systemic unhealthy relationships that Black communities have with the healthcare system in general, whether it's historic like Tuskegee or whether it's personal and just not having that warm, comfortable, like I can exhale, I completely trust you as a healthcare professional. I don't have that personal rapport. And I think on a grander scale, I don't think the Black community has that rapport with the healthcare community. And I'm speaking as a mental health professional. So I'm in the community, but I know that the community, like the Black people, do not have a strong connection or trust. So for this to be so new and for this to be so quick, and I just kind of want to see how it plays out first before I sign myself up to take it. And that's just pure, like, I don't trust, like I'm not fully trusting of the healthcare system. I done seen what it did to us back in the day. I haven't seen much promotion of healing and like education, which is why I'm excited that you're starting your YouTube channel. So feel free to plug that. But I haven't seen healing, so I can't continue to openly trust and sign up for different things if we haven't addressed all of the horrendous stuff that's happened to us in the past.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
And I basically piggyback off of what Lauren says. Like, I feel like a overall, traumatic generation, like I said, generational experiences of things that have happened in connection with the medical community and the Black community that, already puts a negative stigma on anything that's seemingly good for us, quote unquote. So then to top that, I feel like specifically in this time, a lot of the propaganda that was placed around it, and of course you can't really trust the media either, which is another system that doesn't really have a positive connection with the Black community. But you see all this propaganda. Like I saw the other day that they was like DC was going to be offering to give out marijuana in exchange for getting the vaccine. Now, how true that may be, I don't know. But it's like, why is it seeming that we're trying to be coerced into a situation? What is if the sale is, this is something that's safe and healthy and helpful for the community, the world community, I don't see why the propaganda around it has to be such, because I feel like it's more triggering than not. I feel like it's more hurtful than helpful, the propaganda that they're putting out around the vaccine. That's kind of making it a polarizing thing. As a kid, like you said, we got vaccines. We had to get vaccines to go to school. That was, we didn't think much of that. But because, like you said, this is a new situation, and then the surrounding stories and mixed with the trauma of all of the things that have happened in the past in the Black community, it's too much going on for us, for me particularly, to see like a clear view of, okay, this may potentially be something that's helpful, not only for me, but for the community as a whole. So I like I said, it's the trust thing for me.
I think both of you all have solid points, and I can totally understand your hesitation, and your remarks are mirroring those of people in our community. I'm going to start first with Lauren's remarks. So I think the biggest thing with building trust is, one, honestly, we just need to increase the number of representation of people that look like us within the medical field. And I think that even here where I'm currently at, right outside of Chicago, there's a clinic that is like, I'm going to say like 80% African-American. How many Black providers do they have? Two Black providers for a clinic that's, and so you get to the point where people are like, I don't see people like me. And I agree, the history is scary, right? We do have Tuskegee experiments where you're withholding treatment of a known disease just to see what the outcomes do to the body. Like, what does syphilis do to the brain if I don't treat it? Yes, that is unacceptable. Beyond that, there's experimental gyn procedures on women, enslaved women, where they removed the breast. They did gynecologic procedures, no anesthetic, because African or Black individuals have high pain tolerance. They don't need medicine. These people don't feel pain. Those experiences have definitely colored and shaped where we are today. So I think the biggest thing is we need to increase our representation, which is step one. The second thing I would say, for the concern about like, oh yeah, I'm a little worried, and like, how does this affect the Black community? If you look at the numbers of individuals that are affected, like when you look at minorities affected by the disease and the number of deaths and the number of hospitalizations compared to the white counterparts, I think we're 1.4 times as likely as Black individuals to be diagnosed with COVID compared to our white counterparts. In addition to that, I had to write it down, 3.7 times as likely to be hospitalized from adverse outcomes from COVID. And honestly, social determinants of health is one of the big things that we focus on. Like, how are you living? Are you someone that has a reliable living situation? Do you have an income? All of those things play into your overall health that a lot of people don't think about. And then lastly, when you look at the deaths compared to white counterparts, we are 2.8 times as likely to die of COVID than our white counterparts. And this is the CDC numbers as of November 20th. So we don't even have the newer numbers, but the fact that we are having higher, and the same for Hispanic. If you look at Hispanic people, they're 1.7 times as likely to get COVID and 4.1 times as likely to be hospitalized and 2.8 times as likely to die from COVID. So like when you compare them to the white counterparts. So like those numbers to me are staggering. Like that is unacceptable. And I don't know if it's a combination of us, if we're, if you look at the people in the projects and you have people who are living on top of each other, so therefore they can't even maintain a social distance. You have a cousin in New York who, they're sick, but there's like 2 different families living in the house. They have no other room to go to quarantine. Like the house is the house, the apartment is the apartment, you know what I mean? And so the spread is we just need to find a way to contain it. So for those reasons, with the lack of representation. So I understand we're garnering mistrust. But even from a patient standpoint, I've had Black physicians tell me that they feel like because they see so many white doctors, that when they get a Black doctor, they think they're getting less than a white counterpart. Like, oh, wait, is it because I'm Black that I'm getting this Black doctor? That is unacceptable. But that is the mindset that even our people, where we need to show our representation. We're like crabs in a barrel. Like we always talk about, like, you shouldn't see a Black doctor and think you're getting less than. That's just crazy to me. So yes, we need to increase representation. We need to increase how our community sees where we are, like as Black doctors. And like, we want to take care of our people. And then finally, with these numbers being higher in the community, this vaccine is completely, like it's up to you. It's not mandatory. So it's your choice, but just based off of the numbers where we are, we have to do something. I understand your hesitations. Looking at me, I'm second dose in and I'm still standing. Just think about it. Just think about it. Okay.
I guess, in summation, it's kind of what we already know, which is it's a cyclical thing. Like it's so many factors that go into one place or another, but I'll kind of try to stick to one. So in terms of representation, of course, you've gone through the whole journey of becoming a doctor. We saw your great pictures with Lauren in undergrad all the way up through. So I feel like, do you feel like you ran into barriers specifically because of being a Black woman going into the medical field? Do you feel like there were barriers that, you and this generation of Black doctors can come and begin to kind of alleviate so that representation can happen? Because I look at, and I feel like a lot of children look at becoming a doctor, although that is probably, one of the prestige careers as a child that you hear doctors, lawyers, like, police officers. But I'm sorry, that was triggering for me. But yeah, like, do you feel like, what do you think is the ways that we can go about, I guess, as a community, the medical community specifically, but everyone, to kind of get that representation there?
That is a very good question. I think it all starts at like a high level. For instance, I'm gonna be completely honest. When you look at the tests, I don't even know if they still do this test anymore, but there's a test to get into medical school called the MCAT, Medical College Admissions Test. Back when I applied, I don't know if things are different, but back when I applied and I took that test, if you look, African Americans in general had lower scores than white counterparts. So if you are trying to, if you're looking at application and you're weeding people out, because there are some med schools that weed people out just for MCAT. They're like, you don't have a 30 score of 30, which is like, really good. A 45 is the highest you can get. So if you have 30 or higher, we're good. Some colleges, med schools will weed you out just on your MCAT. They don't care that you did this internship and you were a candy striper here or, whatever. You worked as a scribe, or they don't care about those. Like, your MCAT's not high enough. I don't care. So when you take that, you need to, I think our medical colleges need to, and some of them have. And the college I went to, I didn't get a score of a 30 on my MCAT, but the medical school saw all the work that I had done and saw that I was a well-rounded individual. And so they were, all the med schools that I applied to, they were down with it. They were like, all right, we don't care about your MCAT, because as a whole person, you are, you're a good candidate. So I think if we get those processes out of our medical colleges where you're weeding people out just on a score, standardized tests people just aren't strong at standardized tests. And if you get to that point, then I think we can increase those numbers, and we can get more people into these residencies, and we can have more representations, not only on the general medicine side of things, like family medicine, but in the specialist side of things. Like if you have to go see an orthopedic surgeon, or you have to go see, an endocrinologist, you want to see people that look like you. And so I think that's the first step, is like, let's get out of this standardized testing situation and picking people based off of that. And honestly, if you're Asian, honestly, if you ain't getting a 40, I feel bad for them, because, like all their counterparts, if everybody in your community, all your Asian counterparts are scoring 40s and you come in with a 28, them schools ain't looking at you, because they're like, why would I pick you? And I have this Asian student that got a 40 on this MCAT and the highest is 45. So I think let's just reevaluate how we are accepting and evaluating our candidates for these med schools. So I think that's the first step. And then that can, trickle on down to getting more people in residency and getting more people in these positions, especially in these rural places where, you have these African American or Black people and they're like, oh my God, I didn't even think, like, I've never seen a Black doctor. Never seen a Black doctor. So now my child is like, oh, I can actually do that. This is the thing, So I think the second thing is building community support. So for those who are in this, we call it it's a position of privilege. We are very privileged to be in the medical community and able to see patients when they're at their most vulnerable. That is an honor. And the fact that someone feels like they can trust you and open up to you, that's something that I do not take lightly and I do not take for granted. So we need to get to the point where we're doing more in our communities, like we're doing like the health fairs, or we're doing like, to the club events, or we're going to the churches and things like that to help build trust within the medical community for our Black community. So I think that would be like my 1 and 2 recommendation.
Wow, thank you.
Mm.
Speaking of thank you for serving us during this pandemic that
Absolutely.
has exceeded all of our timelines of which we thought we were going to go. We probably should start off by thanking you.
Oh, no.
Essential worker, for all that you do and all that you continue to do. We really appreciate you coming on to the podcast and educating us personally, but also our listeners, our families, our friends. You have given us a lot of information to help make more sound, thought-provoking decisions moving forward about our health. And hopefully you'll be able to come back on for a future podcast whenever we have another health or medical type of discussion. You can come on in, because you really broke stuff down to just a very, I don't want to say average, civilian level.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that. We really appreciate you and your time.
Oh, not a problem. Not a problem. I do want to just quickly say, because I'm pretty sure someone's going to ask this, and I've gotten this question. Doc, can I take the COVID vaccine if I'm pregnant? The answer is we don't know. But we can say I have counterparts here who are pregnant who got the vaccine and they're doing just fine. There's just not enough information. So if you're breastfeeding or if you're currently pregnant, we don't have the answer yet because we're still, seeing how things fare out. So just wanted to say that because I have gotten some people and I'm like, yeah, we don't have the answer. We don't have all the answers yet, guys, but we're getting there.
They ain't got the answer, Sway.
Yeah.
But I think that speaks to trustworthiness and vulnerability, like the
that
fact
level of transparency.
To say, we don't know yet, and provide the information that you do know, but just kind of say, I don't know, because we look to you guys as the experts in like everything.
Mm-hmm.
By you saying, I don't know, that just kind of makes you more human. It kind of normalizes not having all the answers, but still moving towards wellness anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
So Dr. Yolanda, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your knowledge. Now, for those of us that want to follow you and learn more about you, you mentioned a YouTube page. How can we get a hold of you and see what you're talking about?
Yeah, so if you're interested in learning more about the medical journey, that journey through family medicine, learning how to figuring out an obstetrical fellowship, all of that. If you want to deliver babies as a family medicine doctor, it's still a possibility. You can do it. I am at Paging Dr. Yogi. So you have to spell out doctor. So Paging Dr. Yogi is my YouTube and my Instagram handle. So you can find me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that was a dope conversation. Like I definitely, I'm still not gonna say that I'm just completely gung ho, like, hey, let's do this. But I feel like a lot of what she talked about, kind of like you said before in her introduction, kind of taking the mystique off of some of the aspects of specifically the COVID vaccine, but the greater understanding of what we need in the medical field to kind of accommodate for some of the traumatic experience that Black people as a community have had with that particular system. So I feel like I definitely appreciated her for coming and having that conversation with us.
Sarah, I'm interested to hear what your takeaway was, because out of the three of us, you were the only one prior to hearing Dr. Paylor speak was pro-COVID vaccine, where Jarrell and I were against COVID vaccine. So what were your takeaways from the conversation?
Oh yeah, definitely. Not to repeat anything she said, but a lot of the topics that she was talking about, I'm right on target with, because as people, as the nation, I don't think we're like pro-vaccine, which is what she said. She just said that, it's new. That's why people are kind of shying away from it. It's not like if this vaccine was out 10 years ago, you'd be like, oh yeah, give me the COVID vaccine, and it would be no issue. But because it's new, people are like, I don't really feel comfortable with that. But it doesn't mean that we're against vaccines. And I also like that she said that, getting COVID is way worse than, the symptoms of having the vaccine. So honestly, you rather have those vaccine symptoms, if you do have symptoms, than actually to get COVID, because you don't know what COVID could do. So I'm for it. I don't know if I didn't say I was going to be in the first batch, but I did say that I would get it because I'm comfortable with it. Also, I am a breastfeeding mother, so I also have to think about how it would affect my child, because she didn't mention this, but, people that get the COVID vaccine, you have to be like 15 or older. Like little children cannot get it. So they don't know how it affects kids. They don't know how it affects babies. So I'm not only thinking about me, but will it have a long-term effect on my son that I'm feeding, it's coming from me. So honestly, I'm not sure if I will. Like if I wasn't breastfeeding, boom, I'm getting it. But because I have to think about him and the lack of knowledge that they have between those two correlations, I am definitely going to, I don't know, I have to weigh my options. But I am for the vaccine and anybody else getting the vaccine.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Another thing that Jarrell mentioned a while ago that I want to kind of bring into the podcast conversation is that we invite guests that have different perspectives. And I really appreciate that all of us have different perspectives, because that's the flip side of being triggered. It's great to feel some type of way and to express that, but we definitely want to provide a platform of, while you're riled up and feeling some type of way, we also want to be open to receiving new information that might be different, or new perspectives that might be different or in opposition of how you're feeling. So that's the other side of being triggered, to acknowledge that you're feeling some type of way, but also be willing to get information and new knowledge and experience so you can make a sound decision, not just be all like, nope, I'm against COVID-19 vaccine. I ain't taking it. I don't want to hear it. Da, 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 da. No, we want to provide you a platform where like, you can feel that way, but you're about to get this knowledge. You're about to know what's going on. You're about to hear our different perspectives.
So it was one other thing that she said that was kind of, I won't call it triggering for me, but when she spoke about it not being FDA approved, and I didn't realize how, though that has such a prominent sound to it, how much I really care less at this point about what the FDA says is okay and what's not, because of the idea that our food and our drugs are under the same house, like meaning that the same people who are prescribing us things that are supposed to be combative of, having food searches, nutritious food for everyone, to whereas the drugs are not necessary. I feel like they're basically feeding themselves, because we all know that system is also for profit, just like majority of the other systems in the country that work against Black people. It's more so for the capital that's gained. So in specifically talking about the COVID vaccine, I think another trust problem is because, okay, what about all of these other tumultuous diseases and, things of that nature that have been millions upon billions of dollars, campaigns and all this other stuff to come up with some level of vaccine or some level of cure for these other ailments that go swept under the rug, not necessarily because they're not capable of doing it, because we see with the COVID vaccine, we've been in COVID not even a full year, and now they have something that's able to combat. However, in other places, in other areas of health, the thing is like, oh, we can't find, we can't find the cure. We can't find the vaccine that can prevent this from happening. So like the FDA, when she made that mention of the FDA as something that, because it's not approved by them, it makes it seem worse. I feel like it didn't really have an effect on my thought process about it. If anything, the FDA saying it's okay might potentially sway me further in the opposite direction, just because I see it from a macro perspective to whereas, okay, you get the vaccine, you have these certain sets of symptoms, and now we get to put another drug on the market to combat these symptoms. And then these, it's a cyclical thing. So I just wanted to make mention of that. But all in all, like I said, I feel like she brought a lot of good points to the.
Yeah. So in terms of why I think that the COVID vaccine was made so quickly and why they can't seem to make, vaccines for other stuff or cures for other stuff, I think because COVID actually crippled our nation and the whole entire world. And I think if, for example, like a sinus infection would have crippled everybody and stop everything, they would be like, okay, let's get something done because we need to get life back to normal. People need to make money. The economy's down. It's horrible. Everything's crashing. Like the world is gone up in flames. And I think that's why they were so quick and eager to get that COVID vaccine, because a lot of people said they rushed, which yes, they did rush. Of course they rushed, but they rushed because they want to get life back to normal as quick as possible. And I think that's the only reason why. I don't think there's anything else in the world that's like really traumatizing the world like COVID did.
I mean, HIV was one and cancer was one. I feel like we've had, I feel like demographic matters. I feel like because ironically, we saw during the beginnings of COVID, Africa was the only continent that was not being severely affected initially, right? Whereas the rest of, the British Empire, if you will, and elsewhere was the ones that's been affected. So I feel like that still speaks to a systemic issue that it's a matter of the people who are affected that take, because I mean, we don't even have to talk about specifically medical, pandemics. We've had plenty of, very different types of things that were, I feel like, demonstrative of a greater problem, where we have some level of the floor falling out underneath of things. For example, like the homeless population in this country. It's so many different things that I feel like reallocation of resources is an easy fix, but that's not the intention. You know what I'm saying? So like you said, they rushed for this particular thing because this wasn't just affecting brown and black people. This wasn't just affecting poor people. It was the wealthy, the 1% that was catching, we got government officials that was catching COVID. So because of who, not even necessarily how many, because we've hit a couple of million deaths at this point globally. I feel like pick one disease, one pandemic, one societal issue that hasn't created, that type of death toll, but then take off the facts, the numerical facts, and look at the qualitative data of who that affected. And I feel like that'd kind of correlate with what stuff got the first amount of attention.
Yeah, that's pretty much kind of what Sarah was saying about how a system that we didn't talk about prior to the discussion about COVID is just economics as a whole, and how it plays a part as far as how we value life. Like who's worthy of being saved and who's worthy of being treated very readily versus who can we just kind of pacify and say like, oh, that's not that big a deal. And it's unfortunate that we as a nation, maybe even as the world, can easily quantify and add dollar amounts to color, like into ethnicity. Like your life is very valuable. Your life is not so much valuable. And it's detrimental to us because we suffer literally in all these systems just because the economic system has placed a very small dollar amount on our lives, you know, for thinking about numbers and data, which is not, I mean, it's not right, but it's what's happening right now. So like what Jarrell was saying, there's a lot of disparities. There's a lot of illnesses that are going on, but like Sarah said, this COVID-19 has impacted the valuable life versus the regular life. So now it's a state of emergency. Now this is a red flag. This is a hot button issue. Now we know how to get bipartisan support. Now we know how to communicate with other people in the global market space and collaborate on vaccines, like as a collective. Now all of a sudden we know how to move all of these barriers and obstacles because someone's life of importance is being impacted. And I think that's why the Black Lives Matter movement also got to, well, there's other reasons why the Black Lives Movement got so much momentum, but I think it was able to ride succinctly with COVID because our lives matter in this instant too. Although you that are in power are not placing a very prominent dollar amount on my life, it very much so matters, and it's unacceptable how this is going. So yeah.
And I feel like that even compares to like the epidemic of what's the word, the drugs,
the opioid crisis,
opioid epidemic, right?
That gets air quotes.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas just 20 plus years ago, our you know, well, the generation like right before us that literally grew up in public hysteria around crack cocaine, which we also know wasn't at our own, you know, at our own fault. We were kind of, once again, the scapegoat, the you know, the flunky of the situation, where it's like, we need money for these other countries that we can't give directly to. So we're going to put this crack in the Black community. We're going to have them sell and kill each other, blah, blah, blah. We're also going to go simultaneously and make a campaign saying that this is probably America's biggest threat to law and order. And now this has become penalized in a way that you are continuing to fill these prisons. But then just a couple of decades after that, opioids now are affecting the more white rural communities. And even further than that, white soccer moms who are becoming opioid addicts and things of that nature. Oh, now it's a health issue. Now it's, you know, needing some, you know, we need to find better treatments. We need to train people in how to administer overdose drugs and things. Like, they were literally having children trained in how to administer the drug that they use to combat overdoses. Like, they had classes for kids on how to give your mom a shot if she overdoses on her opioids. Like, that's your approach based off what? Who the face of the particular disparity is, which, like I said, all circles back in to say it's a whole system. It's not one entity, and not to harp on the past, but even with storming the Capitol, that was a prime example of this country was predominantly made for one specific ideology. And anybody who is outside of that, you're going to reap the consequences, while that particular demographic reaps the benefits. Like, that's what it is. Because we said, what if we'd have walked up there like that? Been a whole different story. Well, what if this is crack? What if the white people got hit with some drug epidemic? Oh, now the perception changed. So we get to see in real time how there are two Americas that we have lived in, and not to be pessimistic, and it's very triggering for me, but that we're probably going to live in for quite some time, at least from a, like I said, like an ideology perspective. Even if there are certain policy changes, the power base is never, I don't feel like it's going to change, or it has to be something completely outrageous that I feel like will change the power structure of the country. Like, that's, and I mean, how do you combat that? How do we keep motivated? And I guess that could go right into our next segment. wheel segment, but like, how do you get motivated or continue to try to thrive and fight for what is right and what is morally, sound in an environment that you can tell doesn't present that? Like,
yeah, let's go on and switch over to the wellness wheel segment, because you did begin starting to talk about how can we function and how can we create any type of change. So for this month, our wellness wheel category is very fitting, which is environmental wellness. So that pretty much means how can we go about taking responsibility for the land and the world, and that includes our community too. So we done talked about during trigger warning all the different systems and all the different instances that impact us in a negative way. Now, how do we go about taking responsibility and moving throughout this environment? And what does that look like as far as our mental health? How are we impacted? What's going on within our well-being? How can we stay sane? Because the work is not over. So there's a lot of things that we have to do. And with that being said, that kind of goes back to how I'm feeling when we did the Feel the Feels check-in. Just practicing some self-awareness and realizing now that I'm woke, or now that I'm knowledgeable of all these different systems and how they impact not just me, but my mom, my grandparents, grandparents, it's systemic and it's multi-generational. So getting that information and talking through it and seeing how compacted it is it's overwhelming. Like it's so much stacked against us to not just survive, but to shift towards thriving. So I think it's important to be like, one, I'm not crazy. Like it's not me. I'm not making this stuff up. This is really real. It exists. There's data. There's also people that feel the feels too. Like Jarrell feels it, Sarah feels it, I feel it. Hopefully, if you're listening, you feel it too. So you're not crazy. This is really happening. This is our life. And how do you manage your mental health and your anger and your stress and your frustration and your disappointment, like in country and community? Like, how do you deal with that? That's heavy to carry.
First and foremost, I just want everyone to know that sometimes you don't always have to have an answer, or you don't always have to be a superhero in your community. Sometimes it honestly means stepping away and unplugging for a little bit and just getting your mind back to you. Because honestly, if you wrap yourself up in it too much, you're going to get overwhelmed and you're not going to be able to serve the population, or you're not going to be able to serve the community because you don't even have it in yourself. So just remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. So sometimes we just need to unplug and we need to move away from it. And then we come back to it when we're emotionally charged back up.
I feel that. And even to take it a step further, even when you're stepping back into the space after you've stepped away and allowed yourself to kind of recalibrate, understanding that you as one person will never be able to do what it takes to change the entire system. Yeah. Taking your talents and your gifts. And I feel like that is kind of that speaks to a greater understanding of like, overall, from my perspective as humans, what our purpose is, which is to use the talents and the gifts that God gave us to impact the world in the way that we're supposed to. So, starting small in your environment or in your community and just picking one area that you feel like you can contribute to and gaining your motivation by seeing that one-to-one impact. Like, yeah, I didn't. In the same way as like with artists, like not being so focused on having the 10 million listeners, but how about focusing on those 17 or 25 listeners that say that your song like really changed their life, or your painting really gave them a new perspective on things. Like I was fortunate enough with my job. We work with artists. And so we have a subsidiary of my program, which is called the Stream Team, which basically is a project in urban sustainability. One of the leaders, he was talking about, growing up in an urban environment, a lot of the simpler but more powerful aspects of outdoor life are taken away from us. Like we live in a metropolitan area where the Anacostia River is not safe to touch, let alone fishing or swimming. Like that's a systemic issue as well. You know what I'm saying? Taking one step at a time to go, and they do water traps. It's called like a bandalon water trap, like litter trap, where it's just like something that they place in like some of the smaller estuaries. I guess that's the word. Like the watersheds off of the Anacostia River. They put them in these small areas and kind of like, develop, like gather trash so that it doesn't make it to the Anacostia River. So in all that saying, that's a small thing that most people that may look at the big picture may not even notice that this small helping factor, this small contribution is actually making the same amount of impact that, something larger can, because you're starting in your own community. So I feel like what Sarah said was 100% right. Taking yourself out of the situation, and then when you insert yourself back in, just do what you can, and that's it for real.
I was hoping he was gonna land that plane, and you did.
It was round robin. I like I said, I go from macro to micro, then you know what I'm saying? We want to expand some minds, man. So listen, all y'all listeners out there, and this might be triggering for you. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, you might just be listening too slow. Speed up a bit.
I'm gonna just let that sit.
Yeah, dead air. We just put a period on that. That's it.
Sit it there. Yep. Leave it.
Well then. So in addition to that that roundabout way of saying help out with the Anacostia River, there are some other
as an example of the greater points.
Lord, it was an example. I knew it was an example.
How you trying to play me? Hey, it was an example, but it was also a humble plug. I ain't even gonna hold y'all.
I was right. He didn't have to
go
all the way
go
back.
Search the street. Go search
help out with the
Creative Works Stream Team. Yes, go search Creative Works Stream Team as a subsidiary of Joe's Movement Emporium. Y'all go look that up and figure out how you can help make your community more beautiful and all that.
Thank you.
I hate y'all, man. Like for real. Like whatever.
There it is. So some tips to get you started on this wellness thing, because it's a lot. I love what Sarah said. First tip number 1, detox. So pause your scrolling on social media, pause your news watching, step away. However long you need. There's really no time limit as far as what it takes for you to recharge. So another thing is when you do come back, unfollow those pages that do not fill you. So if they're constantly negative, if they're constantly putting a specific narrative out and it doesn't really set right with your soul, unfollow. So after you step away and you refill yourself, start detoxing your pages. Also, like what Jarrell said in a roundabout way, is get involved with local stuff. Start where you are, start with what you have, and do the little things. The small, consistent little things that you can do will make a monumentous difference, as you learned about the Anacostia River. So
I have choice words right now, but I'm gonna just say triggered. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say triggered, but it's okay though. It's all right. We are also looking for more male representation and male voices for our Feeling Triggered podcast, because I feel like a balance is necessary for a constructive conversation, and I'm tired of them picking on me. So if you feel like you are a dope individual and you got something to add to our conversation, hit me up, and I'll make sure I can bust some moves to get you on here, because we need some more Black male representation in the mental health field. Facts.
Help him out,
please.
Facts.
Please.
And I'm tired of these Rams out here. Woo! And all they Ramsness.
Mm-hmm.
contaminating Aggie environments. That's what I'm saying. We got to get our environment well again. You know what I'm saying?
Disrespect. You know what? How I'm going to channel him being so disrespectful is in our last segment, which is called The Art of Expression. So you're all riled up by the time you done listen to this podcast. You're feeling some type of way, whether it's from that love segment or the COVID vaccine segment or the prisoner pipeline segment or the war on drugs versus opioid. We talked a lot about a lot of triggering, some heavy stuff. Yeah. So if you're feeling some type of way, good, because we want you to feel some type of way. But our final segment, The Art of Expression, is talking about how can you turn to the arts to kind of woosah, like process, decompress, unwind. So each of us is going to talk about one art that they like to do to help relieve stress. So art of expression, who want the mic first?
Go ahead, Sarah.
So many arts I love to do. One of them right now is I like decorating. So I know a lot of people don't think that, going shopping for home decor and planning out, your decor theme in your house is an art, but it in fact is an art. And that is something that I have found a lot of, enjoyment in, especially during COVID and being stuck in the house. Just recreating a space that I've been living in for a while is just very therapeutic for me.
That's dope. As for me, I like songwriting, creating music. As I said earlier, I'm a hip hop artist. So I kind of have a purist perspective. So I like to get real intricate with my lyrics and using that as a cathartic release when I'm in spaces that mental or emotional spaces I don't like being in. Songwriting really helps me out with that.
And for me lately, I agree with Sarah. Design is a really good go-to thing, but I have been trying to learn tap at home. So I have some tap shoes and I follow this YouTube channel that teaches beginner tap. So whenever I'm feeling like at capacity and I need some type of release mentally, but also physically too, I just put those tap shoes on and take over the living room TV and learn a tap routine. And that just helps me regulate my emotions and decompress.
That's awesome.
That's dope. So we're gonna get a live performance when we gonna put that. Hey y'all, Blow Up Propel Production Center's DMs requesting for Lauren to do a live tap performance for us. All right.
You know what? If the DMs are popping, asking for
she'll do it.
I will do it. I will put my tap shoes on and I will practice a tap routine.
Yes.
I'll do it. You heard it. It's recorded now. Boom. That's my verbal commitment.
All right, blow up them DMs.
But thank you guys once again so much for hopping on here and talking to me about all the different triggering discussions and points. Thanks, Jarrell. Thanks, Sarah. And thank you, listeners. If you guys have a topic that you want us to hear our opinions on or talk about, message us, let us know, and we will definitely talk about it. Or if you're interested in being like, you know what, I want to be on the podcast because y'all are cool people and I want to rock with y'all, hit us up too, because we're looking for podcast guests that can speak their mind and that have vibrant personalities and all that good stuff. So, yes.
Yeah.
That was it.
All right, folks. We ain't do no plugs. We ain't plugging nothing. We ain't plugging nothing.
Sarah's got a program.
Hey.
Sarah, go and do your plug, girl.
I do. I have a program. It's for if you're in preschool through first grade. I am offering a program that helps kids regulate and talk through their emotions. It's called Mind, Body, Ready. I use storytelling. We do yoga, songs. It's really fun. So check out our commercial. It is on IGTV on our Propel Production Instagram page, and shoot us a DM and we will get that program to you or your preschool. It could be an individual program or we can bring it to the whole preschool.
Boom.
Yay.
So I take the next one.
Okay.
I just want y'all, after y'all get triggered by this episode, after you get all of the feels of, you know, the ups and downsides of Black history throughout this month, if you in the DMV area specifically, pull up to the Remix Race Smash Room, which is probably the most amazing, cathartic, expressive therapy that you could probably take on right now during this time in COVID. We are definitely COVID safe and COVID friendly, so you have to book ahead. All right, so you bring your party. Y'all will be the only ones there. We got all of the tools and all of the safety gear that you need, and you could come in and get out some of that anger and that stress of 2021 and all the things, all of the young men and women that were upset from from Valentine's Day. You could come and we also offer pictures. Okay, so you can bring a picture of your significant other or other, you know what I'm saying? Put it on one of our mini breakables and, you know, get some steam off. You feel me? So, hey, man, Smash Room is popping. Once again, you can either book through Remix Race _Smash Room on Instagram, or like I said, reach out to Propel Production Center in our DMs, and we can definitely hook you up with your Smash Room session.
Boom.
Boom.
Last plug for this episode, because we plugging all year. But if you're a small business and you would like some airtime, if you would like for us to talk about your organization or business or corporation, or if you sell apparel or any of that, let us know, because we would love to collaborate and partner with you, provide you with some space and opportunity to do commercials or to talk about who you are and what you do for our community. We're all about cooperative economics and building community, especially for communities of color. So reach out to us and we would love to have you on the Feeling Triggered podcast in that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, I guess that's it, folks.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Jarrell, Lauren,
and Sarah,
and we the Feeling Triggered podcast. I hope you were triggered today. Pieces and blessings.